Today we're here with Chip Conley, author of Wisdom at Work, and guess what? On April 8th, he'll be in Toronto at a big speaking event for Boomers Plus. Chip, thank you so much for your time today.
Paul, it's an honor. I appreciate it.
Tell me what brings you to Toronto. Tell us what it's all about.
Well, first of all, I love Toronto. I think the most diverse city in all of North America and certainly prosperous and growing. And yet, what we see both in Toronto as well as throughout the Western world is there's a growing number of people who are living longer, and yet power seems to be moving younger in the workplace. And I've spent the last 6 years working with the three founders of Air BnB, helping them grow their company, and it helped me to realize that, you know what, maybe we could actually do some kind of intergenerational collaboration. I'm a boomer, and they're millennials, and of course there's Gen Xers in between. Why couldn't we all create sort of an intergenerational potluck, and I'll bring what we have to the table, and it's better for all of us.
Okay, so Chip, tell me, for HR professionals, business leaders, and decision makers, what will they walk away from after hearing your talk?
I think one of the things that's curious is that diversity has been proven to be very successful in the workplace, especially around teams. But the primary focus has been on gender and race and maybe sexual orientation. We haven't really thought much about diversity relative to age on teams. And so I think HR professionals are learning that actually having a diversity of ages on a team creates the ability to understand and empathize with your broad range of customers of all ages, but also has different styles of thinking. Generally, younger people think faster. Older people take a little bit more time to think about something, but actually get the gist of something and then think more holistically. And so this is why I think the best companies in the world today are now looking at how do they think of age as just as important of a diversity as gender, race, and sexual orientation.
So how would a workforce, implement a strategy to have a more diverse age group within its organization? How would they go about implementing and setting that out?
Well, first of all, you just sort of need to look at your own census. There are some companies that are full of young people, like the one I joined, Air BnB, 6 years ago. It was very clear they didn't have a whole lot of people who were older. So that's where the need was. There may be other companies the exact opposite. It's a bunch of people in their 50s and 60s, and they need to actually go after the younger people. So you just have to start by understanding where you are. Let's assume for a moment that you're a younger company that's needing some older professionals. The question is, how do you go out and look for them? First of all, you could talk to the existing in your company who are a little bit older, and how do they have friends who actually might be a good fit for you? Then you can start doing events that actually are oriented toward that kind of employee. And also, if your customers, we found at Airbnb that our fastest growing set of customers were people 50 and older, and yet the average age in the company was in the late 20s. So
Right.
we actually started reaching out to some of the best customers and actually had them become employees as well.
Tell me, and I'm fascinated with your experience, and I understand you got the call from some young people at Airbnb who asked for your help. What was that process like? What was it like working with Airbnb and helping them grow, with you being a boomer and them being a bit younger and growing that company with them? What was that experience like?
Well, I wrote a book about this called Wisdom at Work, The Making of a Modern Elder. And there are 4 key lessons in that book. And the first one is that I had to evolve. A lot of times the older person feels like, well, because I'm older, you have to sort of play by my rules. And that's not the way it is anymore. Mm-hmm. So I had to evolve. I had to strategically edit my historical work identity and how I saw myself and even what I knew. I was a longtime boutique hotelier who'd been a CEO of my own company for 24 years. And I grew it to a large company in the US. But it was clear when I was actually working for these 3 co-founders that my first thing I needed to do was move from being the sage on the stage to being the guide on the side. And that really meant I had to right-size my ego as well. That's the first lesson. The second lesson is I actually had to be open to learning. I think a modern elder is as much an intern as they are a mentor. And so I had to learn the tech business because at age 52, I was joining a tech company for the first time. 3, you need to collaborate. The truth is, the older you get, the more emotional intelligence you tend to have. It's a skill that you actually gain over time. And that's actually quite good in a team full of young people who often feel very competitive with each other. And then the fourth lesson is to counsel. A lot of times someone who's older feels that my first responsibility is to counsel young people. No, you actually have to earn that right. They have to want they have to want that. Otherwise you sound like a parent or a preacher, and a lot of young people don't listen to a parent or a preacher. So
we've all been there. Now, tell me what's been the response from since you launching the book? I know it's got great sales, but what kind of feedback are you obviously getting from organizations and individuals?
Well, the thing that I'm hearing more and more is like, wow, this is something we hadn't thought of. The idea that at a time where the unemployment rate in Canada and the US is quite low, why don't we actually go out and find really great people who have some experience, and their experience is not a liability, but it's an asset.
That's fascinating. Now, I understand that the States, I've done some research, and I understand the States is really adopting the cross-generational, wisdom in the workplace, if you will. Canada seems to be a little bit behind. And I guess, are you aware that Canada still has some catching up to do in terms of what you're addressing and what Boomers Plus is addressing?
One of the things interesting about Toronto is it's such a diverse city racially. And it just has that reputation. And so I think the nice thing about Canada is that Canada can be ahead of the game. And on this subject, I think they can as well. But I don't think there's been much attention given to it in Canada yet. And so I think that's part of the reason I'm coming to Toronto on April 8th, because I wanted to bring some attention to the idea of intergenerational collaboration and the idea that there's these older workers who have a lot to offer.
What advice would you have for someone who's considering attending the event?
I come with an open mind. If you read the book Wisdom at Work in advance, you'll have some great questions to ask as well. And I think there'll probably be some books at the event. I think that that's a great takeaway. But I think the key thing is to ask is if we know that there is a people who are getting older and have a lot of experience, why don't we tap into this natural resource in a more effective way? And this is, if you're a boomer yourself or you're an older worker yourself, you know what I'm talking about. But I'm saying that more to the HR professionals who in many ways haven't really thought of this as a resource that's available to them.
Right. Okay. Now, I guess if workplaces don't embrace this wisdom at work philosophy, obviously they could face failure in terms of success. Am I right?
Yeah, there's a lot of high tech flame out companies that are well known that were basically run by a very non-diverse group of often young white men, and the leadership could have used a little bit more help from some diversity, in a variety of ways. Uber still exists and it's a successful company, but I think that Travis, the former CEO, probably would have appreciated having a modern elder at his side. He might still have his CEO job.
Right. Is there anything else you'd like to add today, Chip?
No, listen, I think that more than anything, what we're trying to help people to see is aging can be aspirational. The U curve of happiness, which is something that social sciences have showed recently, shows that people generally are happier in their 50s and their 60s than they are in their 30s and their 40s. So for those of you out there who are getting a little bit older, it's actually, there's some unexpected pleasures of aging.
I agree. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you on April 8th in Toronto at the Toronto Region Board of Trade.